Hello, welcome to a new episode of New Media Tech. And this week we're going to talk about what I've been trying to keep a secret for a while. It's not a secret no more. And we also are going to talk about gates and compressions, and we're going to show you what they do and how they work. All that's coming up right after this. All right. So last couple weeks, well, a couple things I want to talk about first before we go too far here. We've mentioned in the past about our YouTube channel, and this is really the last week that I'm going to have to remind you about this, because next week the show will only be up on the new channel. So first, what we want to do is we want to tell you about the new YouTube channel. We're moving all of our channels. So we had 7 or 8 different YouTube channels, one for each show. We're moving them all into one show for Tech Zen TV, and it is youtube.com/TechZenTV, just like you see on the lower third. And if you are still watching us not on that channel, on the old channel, then you need to go there. This week, so this is your final notice. Well, I'll give you one more notice before I go today, but is your final notice to get over there and to subscribe. Now, we're concerned because we don't have as many subscribers on the new channel as we would have on all the old channels, subscribers combined, which may be okay because you may be subscribed to multiple of the other channels and you only need to subscribe once, but we just want to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind in that process. You know, it's the whole no one left behind thing. So, all right, this is episode number 18. I almost want to call it the Barely Legal one, but I think I might get in trouble if I call it the episode the Barely Legal one, because it is episode number 18. So we have a couple things that I want to talk about this week, and not a lot has happened. Well, there's a couple of things that happened since last week. So last week our video came out, and we actually used the Wirecast version of it. Now, we had some audio problems, but we decided to go ahead and do it anyways because we want to work through them. So we're going to continue to work through the Wirecast as much as we can. We still are recording in multiple locations, and we will continue to do that even after we get the Wirecast issues worked out. So if you watched last week's episode in the post show, like on YouTube or on the website, or you downloaded it and you heard some audio popping, we were actually clipping. It seems Wirecast is very sensitive to hitting anywhere close to that upper edge. So we have hopefully adjusted for it this week, and that kind of goes along with what we're going to talk about in a little bit with compression and why we use the compression, so that doesn't happen. The other thing we've been trying to figure out is I think we're having some weird lighting issues with we makes our video very soft, and even if I watched it on the ProRes recording that we make on the RAM drives, then it's still very soft. And we added some lights recently behind me to kind of light shoulders. I'm not using them today. So today we're not using them, just to see what the results are and see if that really is our problem. Looking at it right now, it looks like the video is really crisp and clear, but we'll see when we're done recording if that still is the case. We didn't notice the softness so much last week during the recording process, but we saw it afterwards when we rendered it out. So we're trying to figure out where that problem is. And that's why if you don't see any backlight on me this week, that's why we're just trying to experiment. We're also confirming that the little, what looks like a lens flare from those lights is probably from those lights. We've wrapped them around with different kinds of diffusion, and we still seem like we're having some issues there. So that's something that's kind of changed a little bit as well. If you really look at my ears, you can see I'm wearing something different because my normal in-ears, one on my right side, I lost a driver. So I'm using the older E5s in this week, which still sound awesome. So it's no big deal. All right. So this last couple weeks, I have been hinting on some changes we have coming up on our network or our show or whatever. And this week, I'm not going to hint any longer. Now, I will say what I'm going to talk about is not 100% yet. I was hoping it was 100% by this past Monday, or by this past Wednesday, I mean, and it's just not quite there. It's there, but there's some finishing touches my web designer is still working on the front page. So here is basically what we're changing. To this point, TechZen has been the content producer as well as the distributor or the network that distributes them. And we picked the TechZen network because we're I'm a technology person, so we like the whole doing the technology shows, but we want to branch out to doing those types of shows. Actually, we tried doing another type of show back during American Idol, and it just doesn't fit on TechZen TV because it's not a tech show, and it's very hard to market. So what we've been doing is on the side is creating another network, and it's called Alexa.tv, and it is basically more like a network. So if you think about traditional broadcast, and they typically have their shows are made by other studios. So I'm trying to think. A good example was Fringe was made by the Bad Robot Studio, and it was played on a broadcast network. So in those cases, it happens one of a couple ways. The network may go to somebody and say, "We want to do this show, and can you produce it for us?" And they'll pay a studio to do the work. They may use their own studios, but typically their own studios are only pretty much for the most part news these days. But they'll go to some studio and they'll give them so much money to create this and produce this show, and they may do a revenue split with the ads. They may give them a fixed rate and a budget to follow, and then there are times a studio will go in to a broadcast network and say, "Hey, we have this show we want to put on. What do you think?" And they basically have to agree on the terms and everything. Money transfers hands and all that, and the ratings go back and forth. It's basically communication between two different entities, and sometimes there's more than one entity. There's sometimes you have a studio and a casting company working together, or a studio will bring in a casting company and do the casting, and it still goes to the network as one package, basically. So looking at it from that point of view, we're thinking like, well, why don't we do that? So we'll look at TechZen as being the studio, and we're still going to be the content producers. We're going to sort of produce the same content we already have, but what we're going to do is we're going to allow Alexa to be the distribution of it. So nothing's really going to change. You're not really going to see much change. If you come to TechZen, you click on live, you're still going to see the show live. You're going to see the chat room, but the live will point to the Alexa TV channel versus the TechZen. So if you go there to TechZen and click on live, it may be an Alexa TV show that's not from TechZen at some point. And we're going to try to work out how to do that on the website so that the live is live whenever it's TechZen. Versus an Alexa program. So we did it. The show we did before. Actually, we have a couple of shows that we did before that weren't really technology based. Are going to move to the Alexa network and will come off our website. No big deal there. And you're going to miss the American Idol thing. Who cares? What this allows us to do though is the Alexa TV network already has 5 new shows planned, and there's 2 more that we're trying to get figured out to come onto the network that are not technology based. Now, there's still 2 more shows coming on TechZen that are technology based. Actually, there's more than 2. There's 2 that are already been recorded. We're still recording the first 3 episodes. We don't release a show till we get 3 episodes, and we work through most of the kinks. And then also it'll show up on the website with 3 episodes. It's just that's our how you want to call that, the beta program of a show. So we have 2 shows, and we just recorded the 3rd episode of the one, and the other one is being recorded tomorrow. The 3rd episode is tomorrow. And at that point, those 2 shows will come live on the TechZen page. And then we have 2 more shows that we want to do, and we'll put them on the TechZen. But the other shows are non-technology. We have we have a family one about marriage and family that we're trying to bring on right now. Actually, it'll come on in the fall because the people who are doing it are going through some changes with jobs and stuff. So before they won't get all that done before they start anything new. So that's planned for the fall. We're also going to do a training institute one that's not based on technology as well. And there's we're trying to do a homeschooling one. We have some people trying to do homeschool, and that's pretty close to being ready to start going. So it would be for more homeschool parents, from my understanding. I don't know a lot about the homeschool environment, but that's kind of what they're shooting for, is the homeschool parenting. That's my impression. And let's see, what else was there coming up? Oh, we have a fantasy sports show that we're trying to get started before football season. So that's going to be starting up here hopefully very soon, since next week football's teams go to training camp. So it's getting a little close for that, and that'll hopefully be taken off here much sooner than later. And we have a couple more shows in the list there as well. I can't remember what they all were, that we're bringing to the Alexa TV network, including we like to do some more fan-based shows as well. It's a little late to start Big Brother, but this would have been a good year because Big Brother this year, I don't want to say I won't say it sucks. It's still interesting, but it's a more difficult year than normal. And but it would have been a good year to be a fan cast for that, and it's just too late to start that. And unfortunately, that's one of my guilty pleasures is watching Big Brother. So, but that's the kind of thing we want to do on the new network. So that's the whole thing. The new network will also, if you have a show that you want to bring onto the network, we're open to that. So. Yes, we want some shows we want to produce and put on, and some people that we know want to do shows, and that's how this is all coming. But if you have a show yourself, and maybe you're just doing audio, but you want to go to video, and you just don't know how to get it to that point, or you need somebody to help create it for you, then we'll do production as well, like actually be the producer. As far as content and everything goes, we don't really want to do that if it's your show. That we'd rather you do the content. We work about the technical side, you work about the content side, and that seems like it works really well. We had the facilities to do up to 3 remote guests right now, and if we have to go more, we can go more. We are in this process of doing this. We are also doing phone lines where people can call in. It looks like it's going to be 6 lines. We'll have maximum 6 lines, initially starting out at least. We can provide you with a chat room. We provide you with the streaming. We provide you with all the production of the video and putting it up onto the stream. All that stuff will be done from our side as being the producer part of it. So we have a lot of these tools kind of built in, and our whole goal is to, if you have something that you want to do, but you don't really have the technical ability to do it, or you don't want to have the technical ability to do it, I mean, is the way I should put it. You don't want to worry about it. That's when you come to us. Then you can focus on the guests, the commentary, all the creative sides of it, and we can deal with the technical side of it. So we definitely are open to that, and we're working out all the details with that. It'll be on the website. It's not there yet because we're still trying to describe it all, because I went through it very quickly right there as far as what we're trying to do, but we're going to try to describe it in more detail and even give you a way to request that a show be put on the show or be put on the network as well. So we're not looking at just to be our shows. It'll be always things that we typically produce. We're not going to be a directory. We're not going to be able to, you just can't send us your podcast and it'll go up. It's going to have to go through our production cycle to get it there. But if you have a show that maybe you have an idea for a show and you even have some friends that want to do it, you just don't know how to get it there and don't want to worry about going and getting all the equipment to get uploaded to YouTube and distribution of it through iTunes and the tracking of the performance, all that stuff. If you have an idea for a show and you think you can get the people to do it with you, let us know. We would like to work with you on it. I mean, there's not a guarantee we're going to want to put you on our network, but we are in that process of, we're very open to putting shows on our network. Of course, it has to be, fairly clean. It can't be anything that's really raunchy and like that. And that's kind of our decision to make when we come in is, does it violate any kind of, laws, first of all, but is it too far out there as far as, just in the, I don't want to call it weird. I don't mind weird shows. I like weird shows, especially if it's funny. But is it questionable as far as content? Like if a kid would see it, would they be really upset by seeing it, that type of thing? So we do definitely want to be very careful from that point of view, but we're very open to all kinds of content. I'll give you some ideas of some of the things that we're talking about right now. In fact, if any of those shows you're interested in, let us know. Maybe we can get you in contact with the people who are doing the show, because I know some of them are still looking for either co-host or guest on those shows as well. All right, so that was the news we've been talking about, and a lot more to come. If you go to the Alexa.tv network, Alexa.tv website, you'll start seeing it. The front page is still having some problems, and my designer is still working on it. So depending on when you watch this show, it may be farther along or it might not be. I was hoping that it was completed by now, but he's just running into some problems. But otherwise, the content is already there. The other thing, by going on the network, you'll be able to on our new Roku app for that network. Plus, we are in the process. We stopped working the TechZen iPad, iPhone, and Android apps when we decided to do this, because we figured we'd put it on that network. So you also will be able to be on those networks as well, as other devices as well. So your show will be on this whole network, just by being affiliated with this network. So that's just something I wanted to give you. Finally, the news that we had that network. Well, it's working now, but just the front pages have some issues. All right, so this week, what I want to do is, we've had this question a lot, And I tried to answer an email a couple of times, and I don't think I'm doing it justice. And that is what a gate and compression does, how to set it. I've had all kinds of weird questions about different sides, or not really weird questions. I've had all kinds of questions from different sides of it. Like, what do I use it? When do I want to use it? How do I want to set it up? And et cetera, et cetera. So this week, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you how you can set up compression. So we actually use compression and gates on our soundboard. We run a Behringer X32. The nice thing about the X32 is it has interfaces on Windows, Mac, iPads, so you pretty much can control it from anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and show you my screen of the X32 as I do compression, and you can see what it's doing to the audio. So I think it's a great way visually to show you what compression does. So before I do that, let me turn off all compression, because we do use compression, but I gotta be very careful when I talk now, because I can very quickly go and start peaking some audio. So I am now 100% totally uncompressed. Now we do not compress on an individual channel basis. So let me hop over here. And this is the X32 interface on the Mac. And it looks exactly the same as it does on the PC. It's exactly the same. There's no difference. But I have no compression turned on right now, and we use compression, but we use it in the group level. So you see over here on this bottom right, if you can see where my mouse is moving down here, we use this group as our vocal. So all of our microphones, including Skype, go through this right here. And I'm going to turn on compression like that, and you can see it's starting to turn me down. So if I look at it on the meters in front of me, I see I'm now not peaking, not even in danger of peaking audio wise. But when I turn this compression off, I get very, very close to in the peak range. I'm not actually hitting the peak range, but I'm getting a lot closer to it. So you can hear the difference in my voice. But what I want to do is, the reason I turned that off is I want to go to an individual channel, which I'm in this channel. I'm in this channel right here. This is my channel. And this is the overall right here. So you see I have the gate right here. And you see when I stop talking, the gate goes down, just like that. And then you have the compression right here. And I'm going to turn this back on again. So now the compression is back on again. And you see it's turning me down. So basically what these two things do is they turn down the audio level on a microphone. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to first go to a gate. I'll turn the compression back off again. And the reason you use a gate is for background noise. So let me give you an example. I'm going to actually play in the background some music. Let me get it up here. And I'm just going to go through, I'm going to scroll down and randomly pick a track. Let's see, right there. All right. Okay, so you see now the gate opens. So let me turn this down a little bit. And as I talk, you can see that you can hear it in the background, but it is not loud enough to open the gate up. So if you had a fan in the background, for example, or an air conditioner or a heater or a computer running a fan, you would adjust your gate so that it would not turn on just by that noise. Now you hear the noise in the background, so it's definitely there. Now you typically don't have something that noisy. I got it turned up pretty loud, but if I turn it down far enough, you can barely hear it. And if I get quiet, you can't hear it at all. So it just helps cover it up. So my voice is covering up. It's still playing in the background. It's not as loud as I had it a second ago, but you can still hear it kind of playing in the background. So here's how you do a gate. And there's a couple options for a gate. And I'm going to go through here, and I'm actually going to go to the gate interface, which is right here. And you see I have a couple of options. I have a threshold, and then I have a range, and then I can do some attack and release things as well. So the typical way you use to set a gate is you adjust the threshold, and the threshold is basically where does the gate turn off, or when does it start turning you off again. So what you'd really want to do is you'd want to not talk, and then you turn the threshold until it actually opened back up again. All right, so there it opened back up, and it's staying open. Well, it's closed because you hear the music changing it. So I'm going to go up basically be 1 notch on most compressors. So that's where you typically would set it. Now, I typically go a little bit farther than that. And that's mainly because I tend to tap a little heavy on the keys. So if me setting it a little bit higher, I can type without bothering somebody. So that's just me. The general way you would do it is you would go up 1 notch past where it turns off. And you can see it's still working fine. Now, like I said, my threshold, I generally set a little bit higher than that. And it's also it's also mic technique. So if you're a close proximity mic person, then you can turn it up a little bit higher because you typically have a little bit more of a volume there. So you kind of hear when I see like a pause for a second, it gets kind of weird because it cuts the back off. That's because I have my release time very fast. I could take this release and now it won't turn off as quickly. Watch when I stop talking. So it's less likely when I pause to be annoying. So you really have to adjust that. I like it faster, but I typically have a very quiet room. If you're not in a very quiet room, you probably want to be a little faster because it's going to get very annoying to the listener because they're going to keep hearing this on, off, on, off, on, off. And so I'm going to go back down though. You see how fast, well, when I start talking, watch how slow it goes down. It's basically 1,051 milliseconds. So let's go back down to like a 200, which is fast. Not super fast. So we'll leave it there. So next thing is how long do you want it to stay open when it opens up? So you see when I stop talking, it doesn't go down right away. It takes it just a split second. Actually, it takes it exactly 316 milliseconds. So we're going to go ahead and decrease this like this. And it's very fast now. So it could still be a very slow release. Like, let me go bring the release back up again. But it starts going down immediately as soon as I'm done talking. So you really have to figure out what works best for your sound. I mean, I kind of know where I generally am. I'll keep a lot longer hold. Like this. So okay. Let me back this back up a little bit. So I kind of like that. Now I typically have, again, I have a very quiet room. The room's surrounded in foam. So I don't typically have to worry about the background sound and the cutting off and on. So that's why I think it's so fast. But it really depends on your environment. The best thing to do is record yourself with all these different settings and figure out which one sounds the best. So when you're recording it, basically read off what you have your different settings to. Now, not all of them tell you exactly the milliseconds, depending on what kind of compressor. If you're using a physical compressor, it's just going to be a compressor. Physical compressor, it's just going to be knobs, and you have to adjust it to figure out where it's at. So now this particular board has also the ability to do based on a particular frequency range. So I could set a gate based on a particular filter, key filter, which would be affected, on a particular frequency range, like 1,000 hertz, 2,000s, about the middle of your voice, typically, for most people. So also the attack is kind of like the opposite of release. So it's how fast does it turn off? You see, when I start talking, it goes up pretty quickly. If I increase it, it'll get slower and slower. You typically want this to be low, real low, because you don't want your words to be cut off when you first start talking. So, all right, so that is a quick look at what a gate does. So now we're going to look at compression. And this whole time I've been doing compression. Have my compression been turned on or off? Let's go look here real quick. My compression is turned off. So hopefully I didn't clip too much and get many clicking, popping noises in there. All right, so let's go look now at the dynamic, the compression. So let's go back to the home screen here. The home screen gives you everything that's going on. You see compression is not turned on. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. So there, compression is turned on. So basically what compression does is it turns, for the simplest terms, it turns you down based on a certain percentage or ratio over a certain level, it'll start to turn you down. And it really does some, they call it a compressor because what it allows you to do is it allows you to keep the soft things loud, but when things get louder, a lot louder, you can start and keep them in proportion to what is going out. So you look over here and you see this little thing is going down. This is how far it's turning me down. Now I'm actually going to go look at the dynamics page. And because here are those numbers, and it's telling you right here, it's turning me down 6 dB when I'm speaking. So there's a couple of things you have in here. First of all, you see up here, you have the release, the hold, and the attack. It's like just exactly like we had in the gate. They do exactly the same thing. But you also have this gain. So what happens with the compressor is it's making you quieter. So sometimes you need to get past that and you need to turn yourself back up again. Now I need to be careful here because I do this, it's going to go ahead and start clipping again. But you need to adjust. So if somebody's in compression all the time, they're always going to be lower volume than what they are without the compression. Just like if I turn this off, you can see how much louder I get. So I get a lot more energy through. So you may have to come in and turn this up because you're losing a little bit of that energy. Now, you see how far is this -6 compression? That's probably more than what you would normally want to do. I call it tickling the compressor. So you typically want to adjust this threshold so that, I'm going the wrong direction, there we go. So that you're just tickling it. I'd go a little bit more than I could typically go between 2 and 4 dB down on just a regular voice level. All right, let's see. That's still probably a little bit light, but it's not bad. I mean, it's probably okay right there. That's probably perfect. So you have this threshold. This is where it takes. So at 32 dB, when I go over 32 dB, it's going to start turning me down 2.5 times for every 1 time it goes up. So if you look at it from the point of view as a decibel, if I go a decibel over this 32, what's going to happen is it's going to turn me. So I go to 33 decibels. It's going to turn me down 2.5 decibels for that. So I basically will be, basically a 1.5 times lower than what I would have been without the compression. So, and the more you go over, the more it's going to turn you down. So if I go over by 4, it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. So for every 4 I go over, we're going to turn it down 1.5. So that would be 6 decibels down. So just a way of keeping the volume level without, so if I get really loud, like I'm starting to get really loud right there, and you see it's turning me down, and I'm not clipping and nothing, so it's keeping me at a decent volume level. So that's what compression does. So you have some choices here. A typical ratio for a vocal, I would say, is 2.5 to 3 if you're a speaking vocal. If you're doing somebody that's on a stage that gets animated a lot, keep it at 3 because you don't want them coming in and clipping or getting too loud and hurting people's ears. So this is where you can get through and help that. Now, here's some things about compression. Because lower frequencies have more energy, they typically make it through and the higher ones don't. So what you'll notice, so when you turn this off, you get a little more clarity in my voice. And that's if you overcompress somebody. I'm going to do this here to show you what happens. I'm going to turn the compression back on again, and I'm going to overcompress me. So now I'm really overcompressed. And I don't know if you can actually even hear me very well, but you see a lot of this clarity in my voice is gone because the highs are just being crushed out. So you got to be very careful, and that's what happens when you get too much compression. If you use compression as a safety, and I'm going to show you another way that you use compression. I mentioned this when I first started. I typically do not put compression on any of these microphones down here. What I do is I turn them off the compression here, and I go in, I put everybody into a group. And then in that group, let me go to compression and turn it on. Now the audio group itself, everybody in this group is compressed. So I use that more as a safety that we don't clip. So we're all coming into the same compressor. So we're all talking, and the louder we get, the more energy you get coming in through different channels, the more energy that goes out. And this is how we protect ourselves. And you see I'm pushing it 2 to 4, even occasionally go up to 6. And it's, I said between 2 and 4, and this is one instance where I go to 6 because I just like the protection that it's giving me. You also notice that I'm doing a ratio of 3 to 0, which is why I'm probably going to 6, because I pretty much had the same threshold as I had on the individual mic over here. It just now I'm doing a little bit more of this compression. So I do this in a group. It just makes more sense because if otherwise you have different people talking different volumes, the compressions compete with each other. It just sounds weird. So the best thing to do is take all these and put them into a group over here and do individual compression on them. So then to make it the question, why don't you do individual? Why don't you do a gate the same way? Well, you can. However, it doesn't serve the same. It doesn't do work exactly the same, because if you use the gate only here, you can have somebody open up a microphone and another one having noise next to it and a fan. You're still going to get it. So I do gate individual channels, but I compress it through this group over here. And this is, again, the compression is just, I've tried doing the compression individually and it just doesn't work very well, especially because here's what happens when you get people in studio sitting side by side with microphones is one microphone will open wide open and it's really sensitive. You got to turn up really loud because you have compression working, really a lot on it. But now it's overly sensitive to somebody sitting next to it. So you get this echo effect between microphones, which is also another reason why you do individual gates. And that's also the reason why my gate is set so high, is if I'm sitting in a room, like, see, I don't have one here to show, but I had this microphone, and if I had a guest sitting here and they were sitting here and the microphone's facing this direction, if the gate was combined and he opened the gate up, he'd be echoing through this mic. And the other thing is, with the compression on this mic and on this mic, if he's talking on this one, it's going to start turning him down. This mic's not going to turn him down because he's not loud enough yet. So it's going to seem very loud coming through this one, which causes this weird roomy echo effect. So that's why you don't want to compress individual mics, especially when they're in a studio together. So if I grab one of my mics over here from that our other guests use and sit it here, we would have that problem. And the gates, I set them higher so that he isn't triggering this gate. So that's part of the reason. The problem with that is you got to have good mic technique. You got to stay fairly close to the mic because you need the energy to get it opened. And you got to remember that you have to have that energy to get it open, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of weird cuts in and cuts out. And if that happens, the only thing you can do is turn the gate back. So the other option you have, if you have guests like that, is you can spread them out, obviously. In here, sometimes we have 3 or 4 people, so we can't spread out too far. We only got 8 feet here pretty much to sit and talk with each other, at least so we were all facing the camera. Unless we put somebody out in the other room at the control station, which works. We do it sometimes, works this as well. However, it's just easier if you just adjust the gate and the compression. So it takes, if you start to play with compression and you put the different compressor on each person's mic, and you start having this weird roomy effect, that's what it is. Don't do that. In fact, it's actually, if you're going to buy a compressor, just buy one compressor. If your soundboard has an insert or a group out, like I was just mentioning, put that through the compressor and then bring it back into the board and use that to do all the compression. And if you don't have a gate, you can probably get away without a gate. A lot of people get away without a gate. It just helps clear the noise. And again, if you're sitting in side by side in a room, you want to bring the gate up a little bit more probably than just that first notch. So you want the person next to you triggering your gate to go off. So let's see. Let's go back over here and see what else I can cover while I have you here. So I get this question, while I'm in here, about EQ too. So one of the things you're going to notice is things in here this is EQ'd, however, it's not turned on. So let me go ahead and turn on the EQ. So now the EQ is on. So you saw the difference in what the EQ did. And what it's doing really is dropping down this 200 low part. And this is probably something we use for a singer, because sometimes in this part of your voice, especially a female singer, can get this little rumbly sound in this area. So that's probably what we had adjusted. Now let me come and see. It's number 1. And let's see, where are we? As I get rid of this, you'll start seeing my voice come back up. So this is the boomy part of your voice, just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust the frequency so you can see what each frequency part does. So I mentioned before, this is like the main part of people's voices right in through here, 1 and 2. So you see as I come up here, that's like the body of your voice, most people's voice. And then you get up in this part, this is where the clarity starts to kick in. Well, female voices can be up as high. And then up in here, you start getting the clarity. And then you start getting the whis sounds. Right there's the whis part, 8 on 8K. And it goes on up from there. And then on down at the bottom, you get the bassy sound. I don't even adjust my voice for this. And you can see it goes on down from like that. And then below 40, typically, most things don't react below 40. the human ear can hear it, or it's more of a feel at that point. So unless you got subs, you're probably not really gonna notice that very much. But what you'll notice is for speaking mics, we don't use any EQ because we actually have the microphones we like and we like how they sound. If we didn't, we would be not using these microphones. So and we have 3 different kinds of microphones, so we kind of pick what person sounds best or what they'd like to sound like on each one of them. We don't do any EQ, for our shows. Now, when we do record music in the studio, we use EQ, but more recently, we've actually been recording off the X32. We can record all 32 channels without FireWire or USB into a DAW, and we actually do most of the EQ in there. So we pretty much use it flat most of the time. We got this really nice EQ in here, and when we do it in the studio, we pretty much don't even use the EQ. It's pretty much flat for almost everything we do. We do have maybe one microphone that we don't like how it sounds. It's really bottom and low, and we do kind of trim that off, but I think that's the only microphone that we have that does that, and we don't use it very often, only when we're short microphones, so we kind of set it aside. So I hope that answers the question about EQ, and there's some programs you can download for PC and Mac. I don't know any off the top of my head that aren't full DAWs, but there's a couple of them out there that will do some EQ, and it does this visually, so it allows you to play with different options, so you can kind of learn what the EQ does. But again, we like our microphone sound, so we typically do everything totally flat, and we don't do anything post either. So we don't go in and change anything in post. We pretty much drop it in the audio the way it comes out of the board, and then we record it, and that's pretty much it. So, all right, I think I pretty much covered everything that I wanted to cover for today. It took me a little longer than what I thought it was going to. I do want to remind you one more time that this is the last week we will be on the old YouTube channel. Starting on the next show, we will only be on the new YouTube channel, youtube.com/TechZenTV. So if you haven't gone there and subscribed yet, please do. I haven't checked today, but we are getting more subscribers. I think we're well over 1,000 now, but we had well over 1,000 on all the other ones too. So I don't know if people subscribe to multiple channels or how it's working, but I just want to make sure we don't lose anybody in the transition, because this will be the last show that shows up on this older YouTube channel. All right, a couple other things while I'm still here. You can go get any of our show notes at newmediatech.tv, or you can just go to tech-zen.tv and get show notes from there as well. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. It's at TechZenTV. We also combined all of our Twitter channels into TechZenTV, just so it's easier to keep everybody updated. And we are starting to use hashtags. So something you'll start seeing next week probably is hashtags will be actually on the screen telling you what hashtag to use. Again, I am Mike Myers, and we do this show every Monday night. We do it live at 8 p.m. We definitely welcome questions. You can always send questions to newmediatech@tech-zen.tv, and we'll try to answer them on the show. That's kind of what happened tonight. People were asking questions about when to use gates and compressions, or how to use them, or what do they do. I've had all kinds of different questions about them, and I just wanted to cover that the best that I could. And I thought visually would make more sense because I can show it to you on the computer screen basically, and let you listen to what's happening live. All right, that is it for this week for New Media Tech. We'll see you all next week.